Greetings everyone, my name is Gigi and this is Let's Build, wherein I build a Lego set timed to different media and talk about the facts concerning the topic of the build. Today's build is the Lego Back to the Future Time Machine versus the Back to the Future the game. I will not be playing any of the audio for copyright reasons. I also edited out the end credit sequences for each episode. The footage I am using from the game is for science, educational, and research purposes. My content is transformative and protected under fair use. All footage is time-lapse with commentary. There will be some spoilers for Back to the Future films and the game. You have been warned. Because where we're going, you don't need roads. Specifications for the Lego set. Back to the Future fans, we've got the ultimate project for you. The LEGO Back to the Future Time Machine Model Building Kit for adults. Indulge your passion for one of the world's most loved movie trilogies, building one of 3 versions of the time-traveling car. Take time over the details. Doc and Marty traveled at 88 miles per hour, but you can take as long as you like building all the impressive details of this set. Authentic features include opening gull wing doors, tires that fold for flight mode, the light-up flux capacitor, printed dashboard dates and opening hood, plus a hoverboard and swappable license plates. With Doc and Marty minifigures, this model creates a perfect display piece to pay tribute to your favorite movie. Welcome to your zone. Spend quality time with premium LEGO buildable model sets for adults. This set is the latest in a lineup of LEGO movie cars. It makes an immersive project for you or a top gift idea for anyone who loves Back to the Future memorabilia. Build an icon. Spend quality time crafting all the details of this LEGO Back to the Future time machine, with 3 different model versions of the car to choose from. Build one of 3 options. Version 1 includes a lightning rod and plutonium chamber. Version 2 features the Mr. Fusion and hover conversion. And 3 has white wall tires and a circuit board. Open gull doors. Just like in the movies, this model version of the Back to the Future car includes the famous opening gull doors. Flight mode. The car's tires fold down for flight mode. Other details include the light-up flux capacitor, printed dashboard dates, and opening hood. Includes 2 minifigures plus accessories. Spot the details from the movies, like Marty's hoverboard and the out-of-time license plate. Comes with Doc and Marty McFly minifigures to add to your display. A project worth making time for. This Back to the Future car building set is designed especially for adults looking for their next immersive project. Dimensions. The model measures over 4.5 inches high, 14 inches long, and 7.5 inches wide. A project for adults. This LEGO set is part of a range of building sets designed for adult building fans who love stunning design, intricate details, and elegant architecture. Forward. Back to the Future was originally released in 1985 and became that year's most popular film, spawning 2 successful sequels and a truly dedicated fan base. The franchise's popularity has only increased over time, elevating the time machine into one of the most popular and iconic vehicles in movie history. Therefore, Universal Studios, Amblin Entertainment, and the Back to the Future filmmakers are delighted to have partnered with the LEGO team in the creation of this fantastic kit. In the movie, Doc Brown spent almost 30 years and his entire family fortune to build his time machine. Fortunately, you'll be able to build this LEGO model in significantly less time and with far less expense, although your completed version will be unable to travel through time. This is the second LEGO time machine, and it's bigger, better, and more detailed than the 2014 version. A key factor in its brilliance is that the design team members are all enthusiastic fans and wanted to get it right. As you'll discover, they've succeeded with flying colors. Whether you're a Lego enthusiast or fan of the films, this time machine will be a proud addition to your collection. Happy building. Bob Gale, co-creator, co-writer, co-producer. The flux capacitor was the core component of the time machine and was, according to Doc, what makes time travel possible. The Mr. Fusion home energy reactor converted household waste to power the time machine's flux capacitor using nuclear fusion, allowing the time machine to generate the required 1.21 gigawatts. Timeless icon. With its perfect mixture of comedy, action, and science fiction, Back to the Future was the most successful film of 1985 and remains one of Universal Studios' biggest blockbusters ever. Doc Brown's futuristic time machine played a starring role in the original movie and returned in both the 1989 and 1990 sequels. With catchwords like flux capacitor and the space-time continuum entering the everyday language, it's no surprise that the Library of Congress added the original movie to its National Film Register as one of the 25 elite films deemed to have enduring importance to popular American culture. From the design team. I think I was at just the right age to get hooked as a superfan when the movies came out. I remember I unscrewed the wheels off my skateboard in an attempt to recreate the hoverboard. One of the most challenging features on the model was the hovering wheels function. We could have just made the wheels rebuildable in a different position, but we wanted to have some of that surprise factor that we all remembered when we first saw the movie. We went through about 5 different designs for this function before landing on this one. I feel like the movies captured the essence of everyday that was regarded as cool at the time, and I feel so fortunate to have gotten the opportunity to design a model which influenced my childhood. Sven Frenick, Lego designer. In the Back to the Future franchise, the DeLorean time machine is a time travel vehicle constructed from a retrofitted DMC DeLorean. Its time travel ability is derived from the flux capacitor, a component that allows the car to travel into the past or future, though not through space. This occurs when the car accelerates to 88 miles per hour and requires 1.21 gigawatts of electricity. In 2021, the time machine was added to the Library of Congress's National Historic Vehicle Register. Operation. The control of Time Machine is the same in all 3 films. The operator is seated inside the DeLorean, except the first time when the remote control is actually used, and turns on the time circuits by turning a handle near the gear lever, activating a unit containing multiple 14 and 7 segment displays that show the destination in red, the present in green, and the last departed, in yellow, dates and times. After entering a target date with the keypad inside the DeLorean, the operator accelerates the car to 88 miles per hour, which activates the flux capacitor. As it accelerates, several coils around the body glow blue-white, while a burst of light appears in front of it. Surrounded by an electric current similar to a Tesla coil, the whole car vanishes in a flash of white and blue light seconds later, leaving a pair of fiery tire tracks. A digital speedometer is attached to the dashboard so that the operator can accurately gauge the car's speed. Various proposals have been brought forth in the past by fans of the movie franchise for why the car has to be moving at 88 miles per hour to achieve temporal displacement, but actually the production crew chose the velocity simply because they liked how it looked on the speedometer, modified for the movie. The actual speedometer on the production DeLorean's dashboard only goes up to 85 miles per hour, and the car itself was criticized for being underpowered. Observers outside the vehicle will see an implosion of plasma as the vehicle disappears, leaving behind a trail of fire aligned with the DeLorean's tires, which also can appear in midair. While occupants within the vehicle see a quick flash of light and instantaneously arrive at the target time in the same spatial location, relative to the Earth, as it was when it departed. In the destination time, immediately before the car's arrival, 3 large and loud flashes occur at the point from which the car emerges from its time travel. After the trip, the exterior of the DeLorean is extremely cold, and frost forms from atmospheric moisture all over the car's body. Vents on the back heat the vehicle after time travel. The DeLorean suffers assorted malfunctions and damage over the course of the trilogy of films. In the first film, the car has starter problems and has a hard time restarting once stopped, much to Marty's repeated frustration. In the second film, the destination time display malfunctions and begins to show a series of random dates, causing Doc to be sent back to 1885, when the DeLorean is struck by lightning with him inside. In the third film, a note left by Doc's 1885 self reveals that the DeLorean's flying circuits, added by him in 2015, were destroyed by the lightning strike. After Marty travels back to 1885, the fuel line and fuel injection manifold both suffer damage, leaving the car unable to move under its own power. The time machine is electric and requires a power input of 1.21 gigawatts in order to operate, originally provided by a plutonium-fueled nuclear reactor. In the first film, following Marty's accidental trip from 1985 to 1955, Doc has no access to plutonium in 1955, so he outfits the car with a large pole and hook to channel the power of a lightning bolt into the flux capacitor and send Marty back to 1985. During Doc's first visit to 2015, he has the machine refitted to fly in addition to standard road driving, and he replaces the nuclear reactor with a Mr. Fusion generator that uses garbage as fuel. Although the Mr. Fusion unit provides the required power for the time machine, the DeLorean is still powered by an internal combustion engine for propulsion. The fuel line is damaged during Marty's trip to 1885 in Back to the Future Part 3. He and the Doc both patch it. They attempt to use whiskey as a replacement fuel since commercial gasoline is not yet available. The test fails, damaging the car's fuel injection manifold and leaving it unable to travel under its own power. Doc and Marty consider options to reach the required 88 miles per hour, such as pulling it with horses, which fails because the car barely breaks 30 miles per hour, and ultimately settle on pushing the car with a steam locomotive. They replace the DeLorean's standard wheels with a set designed to mate with the train rails. For extra power needed to push it up to speed, Doc adds his own version of Presto logs, a chemically treated mixture of pressed wood and anthracite, to the locomotive's boiler and chooses a location with a straight section of track long enough to achieve 88 miles per hour. Gigawatts. The power required is pronounced in the film as 1.21 gigawatts, with the gigawatt referring to 1 billion watts. The spelling of JIGO watts is used in the script, and was also the spelling used in the closed captioning in the early home video versions of the film. However, the correct spelling is gigawatts. Although rarely used, the J sound at the beginning of the SI prefix giga is an acceptable pronunciation. Later versions of closed captioning, such as the 2020 DVD trilogy release, have corrected the spelling to gigawatts. In the DVD commentary for Back to the Future, Bob Gales states that he had thought it was pronounced this way because it was to show how a scientific advisor for the film pronounced it. The gigawatts spelling is used by Alan Dean Foster in the novelizations of the second and third films. Equipment. The flux capacitor. The flux capacitor, which consists of a rectangular-shaped compartment with 3 flashing Gessler-style tubes arranged in a Y configuration, is described by Doc as what makes time travel possible. The device is the core component of the time machine. As the time machine nears 88 miles per hour, light coming from the flux capacitor begins pulsing more rapidly until it becomes a steady stream. Doc Emmett Brown originally conceived the idea for the flux capacitor November 5, 1955, when he slipped on the edge of his toilet while hanging a clock in his bathroom and hit his head on the sink. In 1955, Doc had the named flux capacitor the flux compressor, as shown on the 1955 Doc diagram. A similar flux capacitor is also seen in the chimney headlamp of Doc's second time machine, the Time Machine Locomotive, at the end of the Back to the Future Part 3. Although the films do not describe exactly how the flux capacitor works, Doc mentions at one point that the stainless steel body of the DeLorean has a direct and influential effect on the flux dispersal, but he is interrupted before he can finish the explanation. The explanation is finished in the Back to the Future's DeLorean Time Machine, Doc Brown's Owner's Workshop Manual, which states, however, the stainless steel construction of the DeLorean would serve to make the flux dispersal uniform across the entire surface area of the vehicle. The instruction manual for the DeLorean model kit also states, because the car's stainless steel body improves the flux dispersal generated by the flux capacitor, and this in turn allows the vehicle's smooth passage through the space-time continuum. Time circuits. The time circuits are an integral part of the DeLorean time machine. They were built with an input device and a display. The display was divided into 3 sections: destination time in red, present time in green, and the last time departed in yellow, all annotated with DYMO labels. Each display includes a month, a day, a year, and the hour and minutes in that point in time. The years on the time circuits were limited to 4 digits, and there were no possible negative years that could be reached, i.e. years before 0 AD or 1 BC. This means the DeLorean could travel to any time from midnight January 1st, 1 BC to 11:59 p.m. December 31st, 9999 AD. The destination time display shows the date that the operator wants the DeLorean to go to. When the operator types in a date using the keypad in the DeLorean, it will be shown in the destination time display. The present time display shows the DeLorean's current location in time, and the last time departed displays shows what point in time the DeLorean originally was set after making the journey through time. Doc demonstrated its capabilities to Marty after its first test, giving 2 well-known but erroneous dates as examples: the signing of the Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776, and the birth of Christ, December 25th, year zero. He also displayed the day that he first conceived of the flux capacitor, by which he marks the day he invented time travel, November 5th, 1955, as he explains to Marty in the beginning of the first film. During the second film, because of Biff Tannen's tampering, following his theft of the DeLorean, the time circuits begin malfunctioning, displaying January 1st, 1885 in the destination time display. A bolt of lightning triggers the malfunction to send the DeLorean from 1955 to 1885. Though the vehicle was in mid-air, the spin created by the lightning bolt allowed it to reach 88 miles per hour. Doc is trapped in 1885 and repairs were impossible because the time circuit control microchip, which governed the time circuits, was destroyed by the lightning bolt, and suitable replacement parts would not be invented until at least 1947. Doc places repair instructions and a schematic diagram in the time machine to enable his 1955 counterpart to repair it using components from that era, which include vacuum tubes, before boarding it up within a silver mine. He then writes Marty a letter explaining the situation and places it in the custody of Western Union, with instructions to deliver it to Marty in 1955. The Mr. Fusion. The Mr. Fusion home energy reactor is the name of a power source used by the DeLorean time machine in the Back to the Future trilogy. It can be seen for the first time at the end of the Back to the Future first movie, when Doc pulls into the Marty McFly's driveway after a road trip to the year 2015. It was a piece of technology he was only able to obtain due to his journey into 2015, which in the movie existed by then. It is a parody of Mr. Coffee machines, which were very popular at the time of filming. The appliance from which the prop was made was actually a Krupp's Coffina model coffee grinder. The Mr. Fusion home energy reactor converts household waste to power for the time machine's flux capacitor and time circuits using nuclear fusion, presumably cold fusion. In the film, Mr. Fusion allows the DeLorean time machine to generate the required 1.21 gigawatts needed to travel to any point in time. The energy produced by Mr. Fusion replaces plutonium as the primary power source of the DeLorean's time travel, allowing the characters to bypass the arduous power generation requirements upon which the plot of the first film hinges. The plutonium fission reactor was most likely left installed underneath the Mr. Fusion as a backup power source. The Mr. Fusion can provide enough power to the flux capacitor and the time circuits, but it is not used to power up the DeLorean itself, which makes use of an ordinary gasoline combustion engine to reach the 88 mile per hour speed necessary for it to time travel. This limitation proved crucial in the third movie, when Doc and Marty find themselves stuck in 1885 and unable to drive the DeLorean due to a punctured fuel line. The vehicle's hover system is powered by Mr. Fusion and is capable of bringing the DeLorean up to the required 88 miles per hour. However, the flight systems are destroyed as a result of the lightning strike that occurs at the end of the second film, leaving Marty to rely on the original combustion engine, which is also disabled. Other equipment. Besides the flux capacitor, the time circuits, and the Mr. Fusion chamber, the DeLorean had numerous other equipment that aid its ability to function. A keypad used to type in a target date, a lever that activates the time circuits, a pair of vents on the back that heat the vehicle after it travels through time, a plutonium chamber that serves as its original power source before being replaced by the Mr. Fusion, a Roentgen meter that is connected to the plutonium chamber, and a wormhole emitter on the roof that helps the car travel through time via wormholes. Doc also had built a special remote that can control the car, although it was only used once. After it ended up in 1955, Doc placed an alarm clock on the dashboard to signal Marty when he needed to begin accelerating toward the clock tower, and a hooked pole used to channel a lightning strike into the flux capacitor. After the DeLorean returned to 1985, the pole remained behind in 1955. In 2015, the DeLorean was given the ability to fly along with a barcode license plate to replace its old one. In the third film, after Marty and 1955 Doc recovered the DeLorean from the mines, a vacuum tube circuit was installed on the front hood to restore its time-traveling ability. 1955 Doc also replaced the rotted-away tires with white walls. Once in 1885, the DeLorean had one final set of modifications. The tires were again replaced with train wheels, and a temperature gauge was attached to the boiler of a stolen locomotive and mounted onto the dashboard. Fictional timeline. For most of the first film, the 1.21 gigawatts were supplied by a plutonium-powered nuclear fission reactor, and, with the absence of plutonium, a bolt of lightning channeled directly into the flux capacitor by a long pole and hook in the film's climactic sequence. At the end of the first film, and for the remainder of the trilogy, the plutonium reactor is replaced by a Mr. Fusion home energy reactor generator possibly required in 2015. The Mr. Fusion device apparently converts household waste into electrical power. The name suggests nuclear fusion. Due to a hover conversion made in 2015, the car also becomes capable of hovering and flight, although it lost this ability at the end of the second film. History. After acquiring the DeLorean and modifying it into a time machine, Doc brings it to the Twin Pine Mall and tests it out by using a remote control to send it to 1 minute into the future with his dog Einstein in it. As he shows Marty the major functions of the DeLorean, the flux capacitor, the time circuits, and the plutonium chamber that powers them. After refueling the DeLorean with plutonium stolen from Libyan terrorists, who previously stole the plutonium from a power plant, Doc prepares to travel into the future, but the Libyans unexpectedly arrive and shoot Doc. Marty uses the DeLorean to flee from the Libyans and is transported into 1955 after accidentally activating the time circuits, but without the needed plutonium to return to 1985. Once there, the DeLorean exhibits problems with the starter, and with its plutonium chamber empty, Marty hides the DeLorean behind a road sign and contacts the Doc Brown living in 1955. The two bring it to Doc Brown's workshop. Unable to obtain plutonium, Doc and Marty realize from a fundraising flyer given to Marty earlier in the film that the only source for the power needed to return to the DeLorean to 1985 is a bolt of lightning that they know from history will strike Hill Valley Courthouse's clock tower at 10:04 p.m. on the coming Saturday, November 12th. Doc installs a cable leading from the top of the clock down to the street to harness the lightning, and attaches a long pole and hook to the DeLorean to channel the energy into the flux capacitor once the hook makes contact with the cable while the DeLorean is accelerating to 88 miles per hour. Despite setbacks involving the cable being disconnected by a fallen branch, and the DeLorean having starter problems yet again, the plan succeeds, and Marty returns home, arriving 11 minutes before he left in 1985 to warn Doc of his upcoming death, since 1955 Doc wouldn't listen out of fear of changing history. With the DeLorean once again having issues with the starter, Marty is forced to run to the Twin Pines Mall, now called the Lone Pine Mall, due to his actions in 1955. He is too late as Doc is gunned down while his other self escapes to 1955, leaving the Libyans to crash into a photo booth, but is revealed that Doc wore a bulletproof vest and had listened to Marty's warning after all. After returning Marty home, Doc travels with Einstein to October 21st, 2015, where he upgrades the DeLorean with 2015 technology, replacing the plutonium chamber with a Mr. Fusion reactor, and giving it the ability to fly. In the second film, he returns to 1985 to pick up Marty and Jennifer, telling them that they have to rectify a problem caused in the future when Marty's son commits a crime. While there, the DeLorean is stolen by Biff Tannen, who discovers that it is a time machine, and uses it to travel back to November 12th, 1955, the same day as the climax of the first film, to give his past self a sports almanac, which the young Biff uses to accumulate wealth from gambling. Biff returns the DeLorean to 2015 without Marty or Doc discovering his use of it until they return to 1985, which, due to Biff's manipulation of history, has been transformed into a post-apocalyptic alternate timeline in which Biff is a wealthy casino boss and crime lord. Discovering that this was caused by older Biff's use of the DeLorean and the almanac, Marty and Doc return to 1955 to prevent the younger Biff from acquiring it, thus restoring the original timeline. They manage to take back and destroy the almanac, but the DeLorean, with Doc inside it, is struck by lightning again, this time by accident, and due to a malfunction in the time circuits, disappears. Unbeknownst to Marty, Doc is transported to January 1st, 1885. Both the DeLorean's time circuits and flying capability are disabled in the process, though not the internal combustion engine. Because suitable replacement parts to repair the DeLorean will not be invented until 1947, Doc hides the DeLorean in a mine and leaves a letter to be delivered to Marty by Western Union in 1955, in which he explains what happened to him. Doc states that he is happy in his new life there as a blacksmith, and requests that Marty not attempt to retrieve him, but instead return to 1985 and destroy the DeLorean, believing that it has brought them and the world nothing but disaster. However, Marty and the 1955 Doc learn that just 9 months after arriving in 1885, Doc will be murdered by Biff's great-grandfather, Buford Mad Dog Tannen, on September 7th, 1885. For this reason, the 1955 Doc and Marty agree to have Marty travel back in time to 1885 to prevent Doc's murder. After retrieving the DeLorean from the mine, repairing its time travel ability, and replacing its since disintegrated tires with white walls, although they could not restore its flight systems, Marty travels to 1885, but the DeLorean's fuel line is damaged soon after he arrives there. After encountering his ancestors, Marty decides to use the alias Clint Eastwood. After meeting up with the 1885 Doc, the fuel line is repaired, but their experiments with creating modern fuel from whiskey destroys the fuel injection manifold, leaving the car unable to travel under its own power. After trying a few ideas, such as pulling it with horses, they resolve to use a steam locomotive to push the DeLorean up to 88 miles per hour. They learn that for the locomotive to reach 88 miles per hour, the run would have to be on a flat, straight track with no cars coupled behind it, and with the boiler's temperature risen to dangerous levels. Doc replaces the 1955 style wheels with cast iron train wheels that fit the track rails. Doc and Marty plan to make their run on a flat, straight section of track leading to an unfinished bridge over the Shonash Ravine. While making their plans, Doc saves a schoolteacher, Clara Clayton, from falling into the Shonash Ravine. They realize in the original timeline, Clara fell to her death in that ravine, which was then renamed Clayton Ravine. After her rescue, Doc and Clara began to fall in love. Marty and Doc continue their plan in which the Mr. Fusion unit will provide the power required to activate the flux capacitor and make the jump through time once the stolen locomotive and the DeLorean reach 88 miles per hour. Their plan is successful, and upon reaching the end of the track, the DeLorean disappears into 1985 with Marty, although Doc decides to stay behind with Clara since Mad Dog Tannen is arrested for stagecoach robbery, and Doc's murder is prevented. The locomotive falls down the cliff and is destroyed in an explosion. Back in 1985, the DeLorean arrives on the now completed bridge and crosses over the ravine, now called Eastwood Ravine, on account of Marty's exploits in 1885. The DeLorean becomes stuck on the tracks, and Marty barely manages to escape before the DeLorean is completely destroyed by a freight train. Later, Doc, Clara, and their children, Jules and Vern, appear in the same location where the DeLorean was destroyed, piloting to a new time machine in the form of a steam-powered train, the Time Machine locomotive. After picking up Einstein, the couple and their children depart for an unknown time period. It is never explained how Doc was able to create the Time Machine locomotive in 1885, but it can be assumed that he used parts from the hoverboard that Marty left behind in 1885 and the broken DeLorean in the mine, all while ensuring that Marty and his 1955 self would be able to repair it, to create the flux capacitor and the time circuits for the train before he and his family traveled to the future to give the train flying capabilities. Due to the events of all three films, there were multiple versions of the DeLorean existing at the same time. 1985 had two DeLoreans, with the first used by Marty to escape from the Libyans and accidentally travel to 1955, and the second appearing 11 minutes with Marty before the first DeLorean's departure. 4 DeLoreans existed at the same time in 1955, the first appearing with Marty following his unintentional trip to 1955 and later used to return to 1985. The second used by 2015 Biff to give his younger self a sports almanac so he can make a fortune. The third was used by Marty and Doc to undo Biff's changes to the timeline. And the fourth was found in the mines following Doc's unexpected disappearance to 1885. In 1885, there were also 2 DeLoreans in existence, with the first hidden in the mine after Doc ended in 1885, and the second used by Marty to prevent Doc's death and then return to 1985. Other elements. In the films, the DeLorean time machine is a licensed, registered vehicle in the state of California, where the films take place. The vanity license plate used in the film reads "out of time," a deliberate anomaly as the maximum number of symbols on a California plate is 7 characters. When Doc returns from 2015, it is a barcode license plate. Cars used in filming. Universal Studios' Special Effects Department built 3 main DeLorean time machines for the movie Back to the Future. The film's producers characterized the DeLoreans with 3 names: A car, B car, and C car. The A car, also known as the Hero car, was the most detailed and utilized vehicle during production. After filming was over, the A car was delivered to Universal Studios Hollywood as an attraction piece. As time passed, visitors started taking parts off of the vehicle and wandering off with them. Bob Gale selected a team to repair the car so that it could be in perfect condition. The vehicle is currently being displayed at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles. The B car, also known as the stunt car, is used in all three movies, as mainly used for the stunts. After purposely being struck by a train during production, the car was left as a pile of rubble. Movie car customizer Jay Ornberg used the B car wreckage to construct various DeLorean replicas. The B car's body panels were sold to Planet Hollywood, Hawaii, where it was hooked up on the ceiling of the restaurant until its shut down in 2010. The car was sold at auction to Bill and Patrick Shea after Back to the Future HQ reached out to Planet Hollywood to find the car's remains. The stunt car is currently being displayed at Hubbardston, Massachusetts. The C car was used for interior footage and was torn apart so that the camera could fit inside the vehicle. The vehicle was left at Universal Studios Hollywood. Many of its parts were put together on a replica remodeled by Tom Tallman Studios for Universal Japan. Universal Japan sold the car to a private company, and the vehicle is currently being displayed on the company's entryway. There were 3 extra DeLoreans used for the production of the sequels. The fiberglass car used on special effects was reportedly destroyed. The stunt train, better known as the Oxnard car, was displayed in Universal Studios Florida from the early 1990s to 2020. The studio decided to replace the original car with a replica to be stored for restoration. The desert car with the blue crossover tube was left at Universal Studios Hollywood. Tom Tallman Studios used parts of this car on a replica displayed on Universal Japan. After Japanese workers stole some of the car props, Screen Used acquired the car for restoration and then settled the car for auction. Bill and Patrick Shea ended up buying it, and they placed the car on display at Hubbardston, Massachusetts. Development. The Time Machine went through several variations during production of the first film, Back to the Future. In the first draft of the screenplay, the Time Machine was a laser device that was housed in a room. At the end of the draft, the device was attached to a refrigerator and taken to a nuclear bomb test. Spielberg vetoed the idea, concerned that children might attempt to climb into one. Zemeckis suggested the DeLorean because it offered mobility, a unique design, and would appear like an alien UFO to a 1950s family due to its characteristic gull-wing doors, which were inspired by the Mercedes-Benz 300 SL. The original ending of the 1985 film Back to the Future was to have Marty outrun a nuclear explosion at a test site to power the DeLorean's flux capacitor to travel back to 1985. However, during the movie's filming, it was over budget and behind schedule, and Universal refused to grant the producers any more money, as it couldn't afford the desert location to shoot such a scenario. Ultimately, the power source was changed to the lightning strike at the clock tower in Hill Valley as a result. The DeLorean was developed under the supervision of Lawrence Paul, who designed it with artist Ron Cobb and illustrator Andrew Probert. They intended for the vehicle to look fixed together from common parts. The Ford Motor Company offered $75,000 to use a Ford Mustang instead. Gale responded that Doc Brown doesn't drive we're just gonna PC this a little bit, a effing Mustang. Michael Fink was hired as the art department liaison and tasked with realizing Cobb's sketches and overseeing the car's construction. Paul and Canton, who had worked with him on Blade Runner and Buckaroo Banzai, respectively, recruited him. Fink had a project lined up but agreed to help in the free weeks he had remaining. 3 DeLoreans used were purchased from Collector, one for stunts, one for special effects, and one for normal shots. They were unreliable and often broke down. 88 miles per hour was chosen as the time travel speed because it was easy to remember and looked cool on the speedometer. A custom speedometer was built to simulate the 88 miles per hour, as a 1979 law passed by then President Jimmy Carter had limited speedometers to 85 miles per hour to reduce speeding. The flux capacitor, necessary for time travel, was called the temporal field capacitor. Zemeckis said that the name was not believable. From his work on the 1979 drama The China Syndrome, Fink had learned of a neutron flux. He and Zemeckis simultaneously suggested naming it the flux capacitor. Cobb and Probert had already placed the flux capacitor on the external and interior roof of the DeLorean. Fink placed it next to the driver. Fink constructed the device using a NEMA box, NEMA, and backlit Tor high voltage relays. The time display was constructed from LMB boxes. When Fink left, he picked Michael Schaeff to replace him. Schaeff finished the flux capacitor build and built the Mr. Fusion replacement power supply out of a Krupp's coffee grinder. The flying DeLorean used a combination of live-action footage, animation, and a 1/5 scale, approximately 33 inches long, model built by Steve Galley, and the model shop crew and filmed against a blue screen. Months were spent building the model from epoxy, steel, and aluminum. Halogen lamps were fitted to the tires to simulate thrusters. The tires were made from aluminum to withstand the heat. Blue chalk was rubbed on the windscreen to conceal the lack of riders. The act of the DeLorean traveling through time is referred to as time slice effect. Zemeckis only knew that he wanted it to be a violent transition. He described it like a Neanderthal sitting on the hood of a DeLorean and chipping away fabric of time in front of him. He suggested a crack in time opening before the car, but animators could not determine what would be on the reverse of the opening visible to the audience. An electrical effect enveloping the car was abandoned because a similar process had been used in the science fiction film The Terminator. Other ideas included a wave of energy that moved over the car before exploding and blowing open a hole in time, and a cubist effect, where the car would break into separate segments, each individually expanding in proportion before disappearing. Takahashi developed artwork showing the segments popping out from the DeLorean and glowing. Gale liked the effect, but Zemeckis did not. Spielberg found it unrealistic. Takahashi animated separate effects like contrails and flashing lights. Zemeckis opted to use them all. The effects were drawn in black and white and optically manipulated afterwards. This resulted in the DeLorean appearing to emit various effects that strike in the front of the car to create an explosion that opens the time slice. This was combined with practical effects including smoke, sparks, and flashbulbs. Fire emitting from the tires was intended to start the sequence, but the gas jet mechanism repeatedly failed. It only functioned for 2 of the 6 shots required. Peggy Reagan animated flames and reflections for consistency. The trails of fire that were left behind with the DeLorean were practical, but the actual movement was slow. The footage was sped up and smoke added where the car disappeared. Fox and Lloyd were filmed against a reflective mylar blue screen set to match the parking lot's wet surface and composited into trails of fire. Reflections of the actors were matte paintings filmed through a ripple glass to add texture. A stuntman in a dog suit portrays Doc's dog when the car is in motion. It was suggested that the DeLorean emerge from the time slice in sections that slam into each preceding section. Norwood and Charlie Mullen outlined an animation and Ellen Lichtwart animated a glow to the vehicle. The effect was so quick as to be imperceptible. Zemeckis preferred this as he did not want the audience to think too much about how everything worked. Different parts from 1982 DeLoreans were used in the first film. Liquid nitrogen was poured onto the car for scenes after it had traveled through time to give that impression that it was cold. The base for the nuclear reactor was made up from the hubcap from a Dodge Palora. Aircraft parts and blinking lights were added for effect. One of the first scenes, carbon dioxide extinguishers were hidden inside the DeLorean to simulate exhaust effect. Ultimately, 5 real DeLoreans were used in the filming of the trilogy, plus one process car for interior shots. In the off-road scenes in the third film, a modified for off-road VW Beetle frame was fitted to the DeLorean with the white wall tires and Baby Moon hubcaps. A 7th DeLorean was also used in the filming, but this one was merely a full-sized fiberglass model used for exterior shots where the vehicle hovers above the set, as well as when the actors interact with the vehicle. While the original PRV V6 engines were retained in the physical cars for filming, the film's sound effect artists used the sound of a Porsche 928 V8 and the Star Wars land speeder for the engine sounds in the movie. Replicas. As of November 2021, approximately 122 DeLoreans are known to be converted to replicas of the Back to the Future time machines. In pop culture, the Spanish public broadcaster RTVE has an educational TV program focusing on history named The Flux Capacitor, after the film prop. Fluzo is a mistranslation of flux that appears in the Spanish dubbing that appeared in the Spanish dubbing of the first film and stuck. The correct translation is fluyo. In the 2011 novel Ready Player One and its 2018 film adaptation, the main character, Wade Watts, drives a digital version of the DeLorean time machine, though it does not travel through time. Automobile parts distributor O'Reilly Auto Parts lists a flux capacitor in its parts catalog with description and image. The part is described as for a 1981 to 1983 DeLorean. Plutonium must be provided separately. The parts catalog entry includes with non-functional item displayed for entertainment purposes only. In the Universal Studios new park, Epic Universe, you can see a flux capacitor on the back of a roller coaster carts on the Stardust Racers. Back to the Future, the game, is an episodic graphic adventure video game based on the Back to the Future film franchise. The game was developed and published by Telltale Games as part of a licensing deal with Universal Pictures. Bob Gale, the co-creator, co-writer, and co-producer of the film trilogy, assisted Telltale in writing the game's story. Original actors Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd were allowed the developers to use their likenesses in the game for the lead characters Marty McFly and Doc Brown, respectively. Although Lloyd praises his role as Doc, A.J. Locascio voices the role of Marty, while Fox later appeared to voice 2 cameo roles in the final episode, reprising his role as Marty as 3 future versions of him, in addition to voicing his forefather William. The game is split up into 5 episodes available on multiple gaming platforms, the first episode released for Microsoft Windows and OS X on December 22, 2010. PlayStation 3 and iOS versions followed in February of 2011. Episodes 2 through 5 were released throughout February to June of 2011, with the final episode released on June 23rd. Telltale published the series as retail products for the PlayStation 3 and Wii consoles for North America. Deep Silver published the retail PlayStation 3 and Wii versions for Europe on May 4th, 2012. To commemorate the film's 30th anniversary, Telltale Games released the game on PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, and Xbox One on October 13th, 2015. The ports feature updated voice work from Thomas F. Wilson, who played Biff Tannen in the films. Biff was voiced by Kid Beyond in the original release. Gameplay. Back to the Future the game is a graphic adventure played from a third-person perspective. The player controls Marty to explore the 3D environments using either the keyboard, mouse, or game controller to move. The player can have Marty examine objects, talk to non-player characters, initiating dialogue through conversation trees, and perform specific actions in order to solve puzzles and progress the game. Some items can be picked up and stored in Marty's inventory, and then can be used later to interact with characters or objects. The game provides a list of current goals for the player to complete to advance the game. The player can access a hint system, revealing one clue at a time from a number of cryptic clues for how to solve a specific puzzle. Plot. From Episode 1, It's About Time. It has been 6 months since Marty McFly witnessed Dr. Emmett Brown disappear into an unknown time. The bank has begun foreclosing on Doc's home. On May 14, 1986, after failing to stop the foreclosure sale overseen by his father George, but managing to prevent Biff Tannen from acquiring the Doc's notes on time travel, Marty is shocked to see a DeLorean time machine, later revealed to be a temporal duplicate created by the lightning strike at the end of the second film, appear outside the house, having previously witnessed its destruction. Inside is Einstein, Doc's dog, and a tape recorder with a message from Doc explaining how the DeLorean would return to this present should the Doc fall on hard times. Using a woman's shoe as a clue on Doc's whereabouts, Einstein helps track down the shoe's owner, Edna Strickland, the elderly sister of Marty's school disciplinarian and former reporter for Hill Valley's paper. Reading her newspaper collection, Marty learns that Doc, who was disguised under the alias Carl Sagan to hide his true identity, was arrested in 1931 and killed by Irving Kid Tannen, Biff Tannen's father. Marty sets the DeLorean to take him to just before Doc's murder. Marty arrives June 13, 1931, and learns that Doc was accused of arson upon Kid's illegal speakeasy, and thus needs to break out of jail. Doc tells Marty to seek the aid of his younger self, Emmett, who at this point in time assists his father, who staunchly resents Emmett's dream of a career in science, at the courthouse. Along the way, Marty encounters his grandfather, Arthur Artie McFly, Officer Danny Parker, his girlfriend Jennifer's grandfather, and a young Edna. While convincing Emmett to help, Marty delivers a subpoena to Artie, who serves as Kid's accountant, persuading him to testify against Kid and help prove Doc's innocence. Marty and Doc prepare to return to the present when Marty starts to fade away. Episode 2, Get Tannen. Doc discovers Artie was killed not long ago for testifying, thus erasing Marty's existence. Traveling back in time while leaving Doc behind in a hurry, saving Artie and retrieving Doc at the same time he left him, they convince Artie to lie low after testifying while Marty avoided his past self. Returning to May 15, 1986, they realize that their actions in the past have prevented the arrest of Kid Tannen, allowing him to expand his criminal operations. As a result of the Tannen family becoming the fifth most dangerous crime family in California, owning all of Hill Valley. Parker, who is meant to arrest Kid, has been demoted because Marty and Doc's tampering, causing his girlfriend Betty, Jennifer's grandmother, to dump him, thus also resulting in Jennifer not existing in this alternate universe. Once again, Marty and Doc time travel to August 25th, 1931, the day Kid was supposed to be arrested. The duo find another option. They convince Trixie Trotter, Kid's mull, who had a soft spot for Artie, to testify instead. After Marty restores his confidence, Parker decides to turn against Kid to win back Betty. Kid and his gang are jailed. Doc reveals that this is also the night that motivated him to finish his rocket car experiment for the Hill Valley Science Expo. He went to see Frankenstein when he was stressed and was inspired, even keeping the ticket stub until 1986. Marty and Doc return to the future unaware that their actions have caused Edna to fall in love with Emmett, and their relationship causes Emmett to give up on his scientific inventions. The ticket stub starts to fade out of existence as Doc realizes that Edna stopped him from seeing the film. Episode 3, Citizen Brown. When they return to 1986, Doc and Einstein disappear, and Marty discovers that Hill Valley is now a totalitarian, walled society run by Citizen Brown. Sneaking inside, Marty learns that Edna had inspired Emmett to pursue a legal career and to use his intelligence to craft her vision of a perfect society. After breaking the rules around town, Marty is brought to Citizen Brown and he persuades him that he is meant to be an inventor, and that the town is miserable under his and Edna's regime. After learning that Edna had hijacked the Citizen Plus rehabilitation program to eliminate free will, he is shown a notebook that Marty discovered from 1986 with the first drawing of Doc's flux capacitor. Citizen Brown is inspired to turn against Edna and fix history. Episode 4, Double Visions. After repairing the DeLorean, the two travel back to 1931 to try and undo their previous mistakes. However, the damage causes the DeLorean to arrive on October 12th instead of August 25th, when the Science Expo is about to begin and Edna and Emmett's relationship has strengthened. Marty is ready to take whatever steps are needed to end it, but Citizen Brown becomes worried about what will happen to Edna and angry that Marty does not care about her feelings and drives off alone in the DeLorean to contemplate. Marty, with the help of Trixie, ends Edna and Emmett's relationship, but Emmett is still reluctant to return to his scientific roots. Marty tries to force Emmett to see Frankenstein to help him, leading to an argument that Emmett's inability to assert himself. A lightning storm erupts. This acts as a substitute for Emmett seeing the creature electrified in the film as the original timeline, and Emmett to realize that rockets cannot make the car fly, but rather static electricity. Marty helps Emmett convert his rocket car to a new propulsion system in time for the Science Expo. Meanwhile, Edna is picked up by Citizen Brown, and when she explains what Marty has done, Citizen Brown decides to help her thwart Marty's plan. Episode 5, Out of Time. At the expo, Edna and Citizen Brown attempt to sabotage Emmett's project, but Marty discovers them in time. During this, he happens to learn that Edna was responsible for the arson at Kid's Speakeasy. During the expo, Emmett successfully demonstrates his flying car just as Judge Brown arrives. Marty helps Emmett to stand up for his choices. Judge Brown and his son settle their differences, with Emmett's father now accepting of his son's scientific views. Edna is incensed as her plan has been foiled, and when Citizen Brown refuses to help her further, she runs him over with the DeLorean and inadvertently activates the time machine. As he dies in peace and disappears, due to Marty's fixing of the Emmett timeline, Citizen Brown tells Marty that he was right about Edna and that he shall be fine now that his future is fixed. Shortly after, a second DeLorean appears with Doc at the wheel, having been summoned from 1986 by the note. As they talk about events, the town of Hill Valley disappears around them. After Marty's great-grandfather William Willie McFly says that the town disappeared before he was born, he suggests that they talk to its only remaining inhabitant, Scary Mary Pickford. Discovering that Mary is in fact Edna, Marty and Doc guide her in a dissociative fugue to reveal what happened to the town. After finding the young town to be an idealistic society, Edna had attempted to burn down a saloon that Beauregard Tannen was setting up, but inadvertently took the rest of Hill Valley with it. Traveling back to 1876, Marty and Doc stop Edna before she can burn down the saloon while simultaneously saving her from being shot by Beauregard. After Edna escapes, Marty and Doc return her and the first DeLorean to the restored Hill Valley of 1931. Having crashed into the police station, Edna is quickly arrested, having previously been recorded confessing to arson against Kids' Speakeasy. The alternate DeLorean then disappears, having been erased from history. As Marty and Doc are preparing to return, Marty spots Artie and Trixie having falling in love with each other, and worries about this future since Artie was to be wed to his grandmother Sylvia. She reveals that Trixie Trotter is a stage name, and that her name is actually Sylvia Miskin. Doc and Marty return to 1986 and discover that this new post-time travel timeline, there was no estate sale because Doc's reconciliation with his father allowed the Browns to stay part-time in Hill Valley to supervise a scholarship award for young scientists that Judge Brown funded. Doc reveals his previous absence to Marty, that he had been compiling a history of the McFly family to present to Marty as a graduation gift, but found information on his grandmother challenging to come across. As aforementioned, she was working under the name Trixie, and thus had traveled to 1931 to obtain research firsthand. However, they find that Edna and Kid had fallen in love while in jail, and afterwards married, and both became much happier and friendlier since, which they decide would be the best to ignore. Suddenly, 3 separate DeLoreans appear, each with different future version of Marty driving them. They approach Marty and Doc and insist they come help them to assure that their respective futures occur as they're supposed to. Doc and his Marty leave, the Martys arguing with each other, saying the future can wait until after they've enjoyed the present for a while. Then they depart to an unknown time. Development. Back to the Future the game was announced by developer Telltale Games in early June 2010 as part of a licensing deal to create video games based on Universal Pictures' Back to the Future and Jurassic Park film series. The title is split up into 5 episodes and was available for Microsoft Windows, OS X, PlayStation 3, Wii, as a single retail release, and iOS. The development team sought input from fans on various scenarios by means of an online survey, and brought in Trilogy co-creator, co-writer, and co-producer Bob Gale as a story consultant. Several concepts he and director Robert Zemeckis had originally conceived for Part 2, such as the exploration of the Prohibition era and Doc's family history, were reworked into the game. Telltale Games found adhering to the film's established timelines to be one of the greatest challenges regarding the development of the script. Many ideas had to be scrapped due to conflicts that would have caused paradoxes with the other stories of the films. Gale stated that although the game is not part of the series canon, it is possible that it could take place in an alternate timeline. 3 months after its initial announcement, the team revealed the first piece of concept art for the protagonists, created by artist Ryan Jones and based on the actors Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd, who allowed their likenesses to be used for the in-game characters. Seasoned designer and writer Michael Stemmel emphasized that the game's graphics would take a less realistic and more stylized approach while trying to stay true to the feel of the trilogy. The puzzles were designed to rely on applying items in the inventory to characters and objects, as the developers did not think of Marty as a protagonist that would build a gadget from various parts. Audio. As Michael J. Fox was unavailable to reprise his role as Marty for the game, newcomer A.J. Locascio voiced the character instead, though Fox later provided voice work for Marty's great-grandfather William in the fifth and final episode of the game, as well as for the 3 futuristic versions of Marty who appear in the game's final cutscene. Locascio was able to get the part when his audition sample ended up in the email inbox of director Julian Kwasniewski, and managed to impress both Gale and Lloyd with how closely it resembled the sound of Fox's voice during the time the trilogy was filmed. Lloyd returned to voice Doc Brown and began his first recording session for the game late in September 2010. Later, Claudia Wells joined the cast, reprising her role as Jennifer Parker from the first film. Kid Beyond was providing the voice for Biff Tannen in place for actor Tom Wilson in the game's original release, but Wilson returned to voice the character for the 30th anniversary re-release. James Arnold Taylor voiced the younger Emmett Brown, though the game features other returning characters including George and Lorraine McFly. Voice work for these characters are provided by a variety of voice actors in the Bay Area. The song Back in Time by Huey Lewis and the News, which was written for the first film, appears in the game. The same year, a full retail version consisting of all 5 episodes for PC was released on September 29th, and on PlayStation 3 and Wii on October 25th across North America. EU versions for all 3 platforms were released the following year. Additional releases for PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, and Xbox One were released globally in October 2015. The game was free for PlayStation Plus subscribers in January 2012. The game was delisted from all digital storefronts by the end of 2018, following the closure of Telltale Games. Some of my favorite films growing up were Back to the Future 1 and 2. I remember seeing Part 2 in theaters. I wasn't a fan of westerns at the time, so I waited until Part 3 was available to rent on VHS. I even had the original soundtrack on cassette tape for the first film. Growing up in the Detroit metro area of Michigan, there's a yearly event called the Woodward Dream Cruise. During this event, people from all over the world would drive their classic and custom cars up and down Woodward Avenue. I loved seeing all the film-accurate cars on display. Seeing a DeLorean time machine do a burnout up close with the flux capacitor fluxing is one of my core memories. Total build time today, 5 hours, 18 minutes, 38 seconds to build the original version from Part 1 of Back to the Future. 5 hours, 27 minutes, 50 seconds to build Part 2 with the Mr. Fusion adapter and hover wheels. And 5 hours, 45 minutes, 10 seconds to build the Part 3 white wall wheels and hood-mounted circuit board. In the game, I got about 21 minutes into the 5th episode. I have seen some speedruns for this game at around 2 hours. You could watch all of the Back to the Future Part 1 at 1 hour 56 minutes, Back to the Future Part 2 at 1 hour 48 minutes, and Back to the Future Part 3 at 1 hour 58 minutes. and have 3 minutes left to spare. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Remember to like, subscribe, share, ring that bell, all the things for the YouTubes. Thank you.